Okay, so I want to talk a bit about there are some concerns whether the 250 billion or what this 25 billion basically that's being pumped in, if there will be any leakages of that fund, meaning that because the current government that's of the day is made out of political parties which have been alleged to have been involved in a lot
Mm.
of like corruption, abuse power scandals lah. So basically that's a
Alleged,
concern as well.
alleged.
I mean, no one has been convicted yet lah. So
Yeah.
Leakages.
conveniently.
Conveniently.
Yeah.
Go on, Michelle. You start first.
I think they must be like the worst people on planet Earth if they were to capitalize on something like this, right?
I don't want to speculate on things like this, to be honest. Yeah.
Mm.
I think
Alright, okay.
as a person who likes to take risks, I would say that
Okay.
there will definitely be some leakages, and especially that 80% back loan by the government that goes to SMEs, the 50 billion ringgit that they allocated
Yeah.
definitely will go to some people who will take advantage of it. I say
Yeah.
definitely not because I can see the future, but from the past we've seen it happen with a lot of people, especially in the Indian community. We had this thing called Steady, where it gave a lot of what do you call that, government loans and government contracts to people who didn't do much with it except fill their own pockets. So this is an inevitability in my opinion. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Dia tak berlalu luasa lah.
Okay. So is there anything else in the stimulus package that you'd like to address?
Food security, I think, is quite an interesting topic. I think the government is finally looking at it as a important sector.
Yeah.
But I think what needs to happen is, for me, food in private hands will always go to commodity foods, expensive food like fruits, for example, for export. Sorry, let's say but what we need more is staple foods like rice.
Yeah.
So there's not many rice fields in Malaysia. There's a very small percentage. And if you compare it, especially with palm oil, for example, you cannot compare. Like millions of acres versus a tiny number.
Yeah.
So I think what really needs to happen is the government needs to nationalize food production and focus on staple foods, but also better the supply chain, because a lot of people are now producing foods, no trucks to go give to people at the moment. So if the government can come up with that kind of like farm to table supply chain on the government side, they can always employ people to produce the foods that Malaysians actually need, because our food bill for 2018 for 50 billion ringgit of imported food. If we can reduce that, I think it kind of like does two things. One, it gives jobs to people locally,
Yeah.
but another thing is it also reduces the vulnerabilities in times of crisis. When let's say Thailand doesn't give us rice anymore, what the hell are we gonna do? I mean, they have no rice.
Hey, Vietnam they will not sign a new rice export contract.
See, cannot get sticky rice anymore. What are we going to eat with our mangoes, man? I mean,
Palm oil.
palm oil.
Drink it.
So yeah, that's my opinion. Lah.
No, I agree.
Okay.
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Feel like more attention should be paid to to stimulate the agriculture sector as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should encourage more people to plant rice. But yeah, on a serious note, I do think that we should look into that and possibly help. The government should possibly also think of new ways to innovate that sector, to help farmers come up with more production and
Exactly. Through genetically modified organisms like we have said so far. Yeah, but also actually working with certain leftists who have experience in that field, we must also agree that structural problems exist, and a lot of the what do you call that, profits that are supposed to go to farmers have been taken up by middlemen, and these are government-linked middlemen, So instead of fully focusing on just innovation and getting more people to plant rice, the most important thing is to make being a farmer a lucrative opportunity for a person, and that starts with getting rid of all of these middlemen from the system as well.
Yep, I agree. So, is there anything else from the stimulus package you'd like to touch upon? If not, we can just move on to more lighter stuff, and then we can
what do you
conclude
think
it.
about the 2% discount that households are getting in comparison to SMEs who get 50% discount? Let me check that really quick.
No, I think they've changed that to 15 to 50%, if I'm not mistaken. Sliding scale.
Okay.
Mm.
Do you have anything to say about that? I mean, since much of your advocacy work has been focused on
electricity, yeah.
Yeah.
It's average 30 ringgit savings on people, but I think that's to me right now it's pretty fine lah. Basically, we have a surplus of electricity generation now in Malaysia. I think that surplus was 4 times like this when people are at home using so many lights and air conditioning all the time. I think that's good, but I think we still rely on things like coal and natural gas, and this is not the time for us to pertikaikan that at the moment lah, because right now we need to channel all our funds to the people who are suffering. But after this, we need to think about decarbonizing our electricity, but that can come after lah. Right now, let's focus on COVID basically.
Yep.
I think we can move on now then.
Can move on? Okay. So, nothing else? How about rent? Like, they're saying B40 groups in cities are exempted from paying rent for 6 months. Total cost of 3 million to be borne by government.
PPRs being exempted. What do you call that?
Public housing residents.
Government-owned housing again exempted. Very good. There should be more government-owned housing. To be fair, if you ask me, but I think right now the focus will be on the state government's PPRs, because state governments own PPRs as well, like especially Selangor and Penang. Hopefully they also follow suit, because people who live in PPRs, they really cannot afford rent at the moment. Although the rent is low, but they need to save as much as they can.
Okay, so what do you think like the future will look like after COVID-19? Would like nations start to learn from the mistakes that they've had in the past few weeks or months, meaning that they should be encouraging more online resources and stuff like that?
I think it also depends heavily on regulators. I Sherry and I, we are both in the legal sector, and we could see that there are strict rules about how things are conducted, in terms of hearings and trials. But I mean, recently we received a circular directive from the federal court that some hearings can be done online, which is I think quite refreshing to hear, coming from the courts.
I mean, from the civil side, yeah, but criminal, you got to bring the accused to the court.
Yeah, definitely.
So unless they have some e-review system in the prison where they can bring them.
But it's still something to me. I think certain work that have been considered as it couldn't be done online and whatnot is suddenly some things. I mean, it's suddenly available online. So I think that's something that is very refreshing to hear. And maybe more companies will also adopt work from home culture and adopt a more flexible approach. Working culture for their employees now.
Would that also mean that if you're working from home, you don't really have personal time, there may be difficulty for you in setting that boundary between work and your personal life, because 24 hours a day you're at home and you're expected to be on call all the time?
I think that definitely happens to some companies. Bosses take advantage of the fact that you are working from home, and so fixed hours in office doesn't apply. You're expected to be available 24 hours. I don't think that's fair to be expected of.
And do you think there will be like a
sorry?
blending between weekends and weekdays, So let's say maybe we all move on to more of like a digital economy and everything. We have like this infrastructure to allow us to have this work from home culture. Then let's say our weekdays and weekends, there's not much of a difference, right? Suddenly on weekends, I'm expected to just, because they'll give you deadlines. They say, let's say on Friday, they say next Monday, can you give me this, right? And then so Saturday and Sunday, you're just working at home regardless, and you're just sitting on your ass 24 hours a
I
day.
think we need, yeah. I think we need to focus back as to why this work. I mean, what is this work from home concept trying to address? Are we trying to elevate the difficulties that employees face? We're talking about maybe people who have just become mothers, or people who have just become fathers, right? They have to be home and they have to spend more time with their children, taking care of their children, but at the same time also work lah as an employee. If that is the purpose of, if that's the purpose of the work from home culture, then I think employers have to be fair lah and keep their end of the bargain. You know, this is because this plan is supposed to elevate difficulties for the employee. So don't go and exploit it, and knowing that your employee is at home, so work hours doesn't apply. I think we need to focus. We need to tie that back to what this whole culture is about and what is it intended to address.
Because let's say 20 years, or not 20 years, maybe about like 30 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the moment you left work, nobody could like really contact you.
Yeah.
Because you just go back home and nobody can bother you anymore. But then we see like this thing where in the past 10 or 20 years, you see an increase of like bosses being able to communicate with their employees from a distance, right? So that even after you've left work, your boss is still communicating with you. You're still expected to deliver a certain thing. Still expected to follow up. There's a difficulty in disconnecting from work. So, and then like you see that our social media and everything which is geared towards a social life, right, being used for work. So do you think there will be a shift back towards something in which there's a clear boundary between our personal work life, so that we work 9 to 5 only? That's the dream.
What do you think, Arvind?
I mean, I firstly there needs to be I think we have to understand that the answer is there should be, but whether there will be or not highly depends on right now the benevolence of employers, or as I hope organization of workers You see, all of the weekend, the 8 hours working, all came from organization of workers asking for these things to be true, because there was only back then it was 7 days of working, and then they got 1 day of leave to organization of workers on Sundays so that they can go pray and they can rest essentially. That is Christianity's contribution. And then the 8 hours of work came from splitting the 24-hour day into 8 hours of work, 8 hours of leisure, and 8 hours of rest. Again, all came from organization of workers. So if we really want to realize the potential of splitting work and home life in a digitalized world, we need organization of workers.
Okay. Alright. So I think we've almost an hour we've been talking.
Over an hour already.
Over an hour, yeah. So is there anything else you would like to talk about before we call
just
it?
wondering how has your how has your company responded to COVID-19? This MCO period. Have
We
arrangements made?
Yeah, I'm working from home as a majority of workers. I think what do you call that? We have constant Skype sessions to check on our work. We in that sense, technology is good it makes everything much simpler. People can communicate and all of that sense. So we are adapting. It is difficult, especially what I notice is mothers, mostly mothers who stay at home and they have to deal with their children. It is especially difficult on them to separate working and a home life when their children are constantly harassing them basically. So I'm not saying don't have children, please do if you want to, But this is especially difficult for those mothers lah. I don't know how to solve this. I'm not a mom myself, but yeah lah. That's what I noticed lah. But as far as my company is concerned, we are fitting in well. There does seem to be more work because I guess like there's kind of a guilt that you're home and you have to like do more work to compensate. Personally, when I'm done for my 9 to 6, I'm done. I just do other things, but yeah lah, there's a vulnerability there.
Right. I mean, then again, it's like a personal kind of thing. Like many people personally, they don't mind sacrificing more hours of their personal life, right? But the problem is that we've created a culture. Let's say just for the legal industry, right? I'm talking about. So let's say you work at a corporate law firm. So if everybody is almost on the same level as you, meaning in terms of skill and knowledge, the only way they can get ahead of you is by showing that they're more hardworking than you. So we've created a culture where the more hours you put into your work, the more you're rewarded because the more hardworking you appear. But the fact is, these people who are willing to work, let's say, 22 hours a day, right? You know, they are the people that are spoiling the market for everybody else. Because, you know, you're not being rewarded on your skill or knowledge, but just on the level in which you want to be detrimental to your health. So we create a culture where people are not being rewarded for, you know, their what the work they've done, you know, within the given amount of period in which they have everybody has agreed to work for. So now, and then they've created an expectation for, and these people then rise up to become employers or partners or whatever it is that do the hiring, right? So then they say, I've worked like a dog, you know, during my younger years, so why don't you work like a dog as well? Why can't you do it? You know? And then so we create this expectation where if you're hardworking, if you have 30 minutes of sleep a day, you know, like if you have only 30 minutes of sleep, you're the best worker there is. But the fact is, right, if you have 30 minutes of sleep, right, I guarantee you the amount of mistakes you make in a day, right, it's not going to be worth it. You're going to be so damn unproductive. But that doesn't matter, because it's just how you appear to your employer to be working, right? Which is I feel is a very, very weird culture to have, like, you know, for especially professionals. Weird. It's just going on, right?
But unfortunately, very prevalent in certain industries. I think it's definitely this kind of mindset definitely needs to be recalibrated, lah. You know, we need to start rethinking how do we measure work, right? How do we measure the performance of an employee? Do we measure them based on the amount of hours they spend on certain thing, or do we focus more on how much they can deliver? I mean, I'm fortunate enough that my employer isn't like that, lah. Okay, well, there are certain times where you're required to work OT because of the nature of the work that I'm assigned to do. But most of the time, I think I'm fortunate lah, but I don't think I could say that for many other people who have employers who may not understand that. I feel like also like we focus too much on what is immediate to us, but we don't see actually in the long run, like what Chai just said, you know, spending more hours into work and actually not having sleep up and not having time out from your workplace actually decreases your productivity level in the long run. So I don't think people have that in mind when they actually push their employees to work more.
And sometimes they punish productivity, because if you're too productive, then they just give you more work. So then you just have a never-ending source of work because you're just productive.
Definitely.
So then sometimes I might as well not be productive, you know, because everybody else that's not productive is not, you know, it's weird lah.
It's a culture, right? I really feel like so.
It's not just in the legal profession. I think every profession, especially engineering, can die away, you know. But I think, you see, when I come and I look at this, and from my background, I see this as a crisis of capitalism. And I know. Yeah. What else is the leftist going to say, right? No lah. I see this as a crisis of capitalism because, you know, what is important is the accumulation of capital. You know, you have to like rise up, get money, because you're chasing that security, you're chasing that comfort lah. And that's because private enterprise does, and also public enterprise now that behaves like private enterprise, like the GLC. What they aspire for mostly is the money that they can make lah. And I'm talking about organization level. And that is what we need to move away from. You know, we need to measure things like employee satisfaction. We need to measure things like the health of the employee, including mental health. So all of those things right now are not measured at all by the privates as much CSR they want to claim they do. Which is
Yes.
why I think
Sometimes they do CSR for tax relief or what shit.
exactly, yeah. So the mode of production, in my opinion, which is capitalism right now, that is the main cause of what do you call that, strife amongst the employees in this sense. Because, for example, let me give you an example. Malaysia is what do you call that, a haven for multinational companies to come and exploit our cheap labor. Okay,
Yeah.
so they exploit our cheap labor. They give small salaries to a small number of people, and they overwork them for 16-hour days, and they call it this is the work culture,
Yeah.
And then the capital that is produced, the keuntungan that
Goes
is produced,
overseas. Yeah.
goes overseas into tax havens, into the
Yeah.
pockets
Doesn't go
of
to
billionaires.
US.
Exactly. So if you want to criticize workers for working hard, I don't think that is a valid criticism, because that is the culture that they have been taught, and they want to. That's the only culture that they know, lah. So if we are going to tackle this issue, I think we need to tackle the crisis of capitalism.
Yeah. And also their willingness to use humans as means to an end, right? So like, let's say if I do some kind of business which requires the use of plastic bottles or whatnot, right? And like I can't really control the price of plastic bottles because that's left to the market or whatnot, and maybe I can influence it lah. But like, then we will leave those costs of the plastic bottle alone. So we will say, okay, maybe that costs like $50. I have no choice, right? But then when it comes to humans, right, it's like suddenly your employees are willing to like, like influence the person to the point where like, oh, maybe you could cut down on like, maybe you could make this person work more than they have to work, or like pay them less than they ought to be paid, the kind of thing, right? It's just pretty sad lah, the way we exploit humans like a means to profit, so that they could get more profit, and profit is not even like distributed to the employee, it's like kept by the employer.